My name is Chip Ward. I am living here in Torrey because I've been retired for the last 12 years. Before that, I was the deputy director of the Salt Lake City Library System. Had a career in libraries, but I also did a lot of organizing and advocacy, and I write. Well, my story is that we moved to Grantsville, Utah in 1978. Grantsville was still pretty small then, rural, very rural. And we had three small children we were raising. We were doing the things that people do at that age. We were going back to school and building careers, paying bills, and so forth. Kind of an intense nesting period in our life. And we discovered slowly that a lot of people around us were ill. It wasn't just cancer, it was chronic illnesses, autoimmune illnesses that didn't seem to have a good diagnosis, things like chronic fatigue, lupus, MS. And we worried about the state of the community's health. There was a lot of occupational exposure in Tooele County at that time. If you worked at Kennecott, you were exposed to arsenic and heavy metals. If you worked at the Army Depot, you probably encountered industrial solvents. If it was if you farmed and ranched on the side, it was herbicides and pesticides. So it seemed like there were a lot of reasons that people might become ill. And then I think we realized that children were also getting ill. And I had a catalytic experience one morning where I walked out on my front steps and realized that I could point to a home where a child had just died of leukemia, a home where a child had spina bifida, a home where a child had just been born missing a kidney, three homes where children were in wheelchairs, and all my parental alarms went off. And at that point, the question was, did I inadvertently move my own children into harm's way when I came to live here? And of course, the follow-up question is, what can be done about it? So a bunch of neighbors and I got together. We started a community health survey. It was a good organizing tool because I think people, whether they're Republicans or Democrats or Mormons, non-Mormons, whatever, everyone feels they have a right to assess and understand their own health. That was the beginning of a group called West Desert Heal. Later, as we expanded to the Wasatch Front, West Desert Heal became Families Against Incinerator Risk, or FAIR. And then when we were dealing years later mostly with radioactive issues, it became Heal Utah. Heal Utah still exists and still active along the Wasatch Front. I've also been involved with the Southern Utah Wilderness Alliance. I sat on the board for about 8 years. Put together a group called Citizens Against Chlorine Contamination, which got adopted into the Sierra Club that worked on MagCorp. And I've probably been involved in a couple of minor groups along the way. I'm often called an environmentalist, and I accept the term because, people love to label and you get stuck with labels. I really feel it sort of misses the point. I started out as a parent who was unhappy, and my message, I think, was fairly primal. It was, get your damn poison away from my kid's bloodstream. If I've developed a philosophy or an ideology since then, it's probably been through firsthand experience. And in my firsthand experience, almost all environmental and conservation issues at some level are about people feeling deeply disconnected from nature. And I don't mean by that they would prefer to go to the ball game than to walk in a park. I mean, people don't seem to understand that they embody their environment. There was an old expression in the 60s, you are what you eat, you are what you eat, you are what you breathe, you are what you drink. Everybody's downstream from one another. So the decisions we make about what we allow into the air and the water and our food get translated into human flesh and blood and nerve and daily experience. Well, I'm always optimistic. I'm optimistic because I was involved in many different campaigns where we were told it was hopeless. You can't get MagCorp to cut its pollution. Those people are pirates out there. They'll sue you if you come near you. If you challenge them, they'll sue you, and you be careful. They'll burn your house down. Well, we got them to cut their pollution by 90%. My house was still standing at the end. So that wasn't true. We were told we couldn't end open burning and open detonation. People would say, well, you live near an army depot. If you don't like it, move. Well, we ended open burning and detonation. We never got the chemical weapons incinerator in Tooele under control, but there were 8 incinerators nationally, and we got alternative technologies for 4 of them. We kept PFS, private fuel storage, from storing all of the nuclear waste of the whole country out in Skull Valley. We blocked B and C waste, though that looks like that may have been reversed in this last legislature, but for 15 years anyway, we had a moratorium on that. So I've seen citizens over and over again take on the impossible and take on corporations and powers that supposedly were overwhelming and couldn't be beaten, and they've beaten them. So I'm always feeling that we're going to win.